Redeemer, it is by my hand you will rise from the ashes of this world.
It's coming. Get ready.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the end of the world, and I am, of course, as always, joined with my friend Travis here.
Hey there.
And we're going to continue talking about Mad Max during our month of madness, as I've called it. And it's been
very appropriate.
it's gonna say it's been a weird couple of days since we last spoke. Holy shit! I feel like a year has passed, and it's only been a few days. But when we last talked, Master had not yet ascended to the throne of Bartertown. Bartertown. I'm trying to not use their names, so I'm trying to keep the allegory in check.
I think
He
so.
had not yet ascended to the throne of Bartertown. And now, not only did him and Blaster ascend to the throne, apparently Blaster has a real hard time not reenacting Dr. Strangelove. Just Mein Führer, just can't keep that hand down.
It just could not.
Just could not keep it down. I was telling my wife that on the car ride home today. I picked her up from work, and I was like, "Have you ever seen Dr. Strangelove?" And she was like, "No." And I was like, "Oh, you got to watch Dr. Strangelove."
Yeah, that's.
She's like, and then I was telling her about, well, basically, I was like, well, so there's this Nazi scientist who's like working for the Americans, but he can't control himself.
Can't stop doing it.
I was like, that's what that reminded me of.
That's
that whole situation.
Oh no,
my movie
so
leaning
enthusiastic.
mind.
He's been holding that back for years.
I was reading an article today about how there's a lot of male podcasters, Theo Vaughn, Joe Rogan, Logan Paul.
Oh.
All sound like pricks. But anyway, they they have been their podcasts are kind of leaning males into the right wing perspective or mind frame, whatever have you. And I just kind of was like thinking that, our podcast is not necessarily, I don't really think that we would like angle towards left so much as just like angle towards just fucking think for just like half a second. Like pretend that you learned how to read and just apply some of those skills to real life,
Yeah.
Your teacher wasn't lying when they were like, you're going to use some of this shit. No, you really should.
Right.
That critical thinking, that's a motherfucker. That'll help with a lot of things. So yeah, that's kind of I did not
until
expect.
It's made illegal.
Yeah. I honestly part of me wants to talk about Idiocracy soon, but God, man, that movie might be too close to home right now. Like it might be just like a documentary instead of an insightful movie that I used to view it as.
Honestly,
so.
It would be an aspiration at this point. Because at least that president was decent, knew how to give up power, that kind of thing.
Yeah, delegate, things of the sort.
Actually care about what he's doing.
Rome, studying history, Rome, Egypt, they all had their tyrants.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't we have ours? History will. I don't want to look so bleak upon it and just be like, well, fuck it, whatever. Let them eat their cake. But at the same time, from a very
on the moving train.
No, I was trying to think of a different way. I was trying to think of like from a very microscopic perspective, looking at the big picture of what I can actually impact and affect. The answer is very little in the grand scheme of things. And so I don't want to be just the guy screaming at clouds and yelling about things like that. So we'll move away from talking about politics and continue talking about Master and Blaster. They don't show up here, but In a way, they
Well,
kind of do. They're kind of separated, but we'll
oh
talk
well,
about that
yeah.
too.
Oh yeah, there. Yeah, I
You're
almost.
now you're seeing it.
Yeah,
Now you're seeing it.
did
Now you're
not.
seeing it. There you go. So
Yeah.
we're gonna talk about Fury Road tonight, if that wasn't obvious. Mad Max 4,
Yep.
coming out in 2015. And yeah, before we get into that, I have a little bit of news, and then I'll pitch to you and see how your week was.
Yeah.
For those longtime listeners, you'll know that I had a dog named Dolly Barkton. She's a little min pin, and she died of cancer about
Mhm.
almost 2 months ago now. Well, this weekend, we adopted a little dog.
Yeah.
So we now have a little pit bull. She's a little
Nice.
baby. She's about 2 years old, and she's adorable. She's very
Yeah.
very sweet, very very kind. She's follows me everywhere. I haven't really
Awesome.
settled on 100% of a name. We got some options, so I'm gonna ask my audience here. What do y'all think the
Oh,
name? You know, take it under
yeah.
advisement. I can't go to my wife and be like, the people on the internet said. Yeah. But so right now we're leaning towards Nelly Furtado,
No. Oh, yep.
because
For Tasha.
she's
Yep.
yeah, well, because she's kind of like a giant potato dog. Like she's just a big
Oh,
lumpy
for
dog.
Tato. Okay,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get
yeah,
it.
yeah. Ripley, in kind of an
Yep.
allusion to aliens there.
Yep.
um and then O is the other one that we were tossing around up there. There was a couple more. Trying to think of the ones that stick out in my head. And those were really the big two so far.
Those.
When
Yeah.
Yeah, those were really the big two that we've kind of tossed around and back and forth. Oh, the other one was
Mhm.
Pupperella. Uh,
Paparella. I like that.
Playing off of Barbarella. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I love that movie. So,
Oh,
yeah,
such a good movie.
those three were really the kind of the big toss up right now. So yeah, if
Hmm.
you have a particular preference and of any interest in what I name my dog,
Yeah.
you can tune in and find out next week, because I'm pretty sure she'll have a name by then. We're on day 3 with her, so we got her
Oh,
on
cool.
Sunday. So just a couple days now that we've had her, and yeah, it's going pretty well so far. No, a couple growing pains, as you always have with a
Well,
new
yeah.
dog. All those things. We're used to small dogs, and she is not a small dog, so that's kind of a
Oh
growing
no.
pain for us as well. But yeah, so far my little Chihuahua that I've had for years is loving her and laying
Yeah.
on her and turning her into his little giant pillow. We've actually been calling them our own little master blaster, because
Uh,
they kind of walk around and as such right now. Sometimes he tries to ride on top of her. just
that's
kind of
awesome.
just kind of funny. So yeah, that's my news. Other than that, my life has been basically the same, dealing with
Yeah.
teaching and just going through January. What else are you gonna do? It's one of those months.
Yeah.
It's a
Really.
long one that just so much has happened in such a short period of time. It's a lot to take in all at once. But how have you been since last week? I remember you saying your daughter had moved
Yeah.
in as well, so you had some also a new person in your household.
Yeah. Right.
Little different, little
Well,
different.
a little bit different, but but no, it's been awesome. She's just settling. Now we are gonna have another new person eventually show up, because we are gonna go ahead and take in my grandmother. She's in her 90s now, but
Mhm.
uh just because she does need like 24/7 care, and I guess
Yeah,
that's better served here than where she was at my aunt and uncle's house. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
so we're gonna go ahead and move her in, and um that's gonna have to cause a little reshuffling with where everybody's at, but you
yeah,
know
yeah,
but
yeah.
we'll get it figured out. So
Well, that's cool.
but yeah.
Well, that's cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. So, well, I guess with all that aside, let's
Yeah.
start talking about fucking Fury Road. There's a lot to talk about with this
There's
movie.
so much.
Yeah, this before we started recording, I said this was the most notes I've ever taken for a movie, and sometimes for us that ends up with long episodes. Last week was the original, the first that's where I set the record, where I wrote 15 pages of notes to talk
Hmm.
about Thunderdome, and we talked about it for over 90 minutes. So
Yeah.
almost more than the length of the movie, which is not the first time we've done that, actually, where
Oh yeah, no.
we've talked about a movie longer than we talked about 2020 Texas Gladiators for like 15 minutes longer than the Texas 20 Gladiators is. If you listen to that episode, you actually the our episode and a critique of that movie is longer than the movie.
That's funny.
I don't know what that says to you, but that movie wasn't very good. So there you go. Um, We'll see how this one ends up. This movie is exactly 2 hours long. Exactly 2
It
hours long.
is.
I don't think we're going to talk for quite that long, but we'll see.
No.
But tonight I wrote 25 pages of notes for Fury Road because this movie had a hell of a backstory, and
Oh
it
yeah.
had a hell of a production. They filmed for fucking 7 months. Like that's
Oh man.
almost half a year of your life is doing this movie, just filming it. Not to mention everything else that went into doing that. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, let's talk about Fury Road. So this movie came out on. Let me find my little Travis trivia section here.
Oh
May
yeah. Here we go.
15th, 2015. So almost 10 years ago now. Not exactly 10 years, but coming up
Yeah.
on 10 years here in May. Of course, directed by George Miller, who
Yes.
had deviated from the Mad Max world after Thunderdome. So he was able to
Mhm.
himself get beyond Thunderdome, which is a struggle for us all. A struggle for us all.
Right.
Um, 2 years after Thunderdome, while Mel Gibson was doing Lethal Weapon and hanging out with Danny Glover, George Miller was directing The Witches of Eastwick with Jack Nicholson, which is a really great movie.
Yes, it is.
A couple years after that, 1992, he did Lorenzo's Oil, which I have never seen Lorenzo's Oil, so I can't
I
speak
still haven't
about
seen it
the
either.
quality of that one or not.
Yeah.
Yep. And then he started producing some movies, including the first Babe, Pig in the City. And in 1998, he followed that up with directing the second Babe, Babe, Pig in the City. So,
Yeah.
which is my favorite Babe movie of the two of them. I love Babe, Pig in the City. I'm looking at it, and it's got 5.8 on IMDb. That's a
Really.
crime. That's a crime. That movie is fantastic. Bay Pig in the City is a fantastic movie. If you've never watched it, you should watch it. And if you have watched it in a while, you should watch it again and then just imagine Babe as Mad Max, and the movie becomes a completely different thing.
That's
Completely
awesome.
different thing. Think of it like as a Mad Max
Mm.
Elseworld tale. Oh yeah, it's like if Superman was a pig, right? It's a funny thing.
And it is.
Um,
It's been a really long time since I've seen that, so yeah, I'll have to rewatch it.
Now, it's around 1998 that he has the idea for the plot for Fury
Mhm.
Road. Now, he had the concept in mind of Mad Max 4 and the general idea in mind of like a movie that would predominantly be almost an entire chase scene.
Mhm.
He had
Oh,
that
okay.
going back to 1987, right? But 1998, while stuck in traffic, is when he kind of has the idea of the plot of a post-apocalypse in which human beings were being, bought and sold and traded and sought after, like the oil and water that he had kind of previously established in the other
Oh.
movies. Some interesting thoughts to have in traffic. When I'm in
Yeah.
traffic, I also think about human trafficking. So, it's just a thing that happens, I think. However, 1998, some obstacles that we'll talk about here in a moment prevented him from making Mad Max. And so he had to instead make well, didn't have to instead, but decided instead to make two children's movies following up with Bay Pig in the City. And these movies were Happy Feet and Happy Feet 2. Now, I have seen the first Happy Feet. I saw it with
Yes.
my nephew, who is now freaking like 17. But
Oh yeah.
I never saw Happy Feet 2, so I don't know
No.
anything about it. I didn't even really know there was a Happy Feet 2 until like a couple of years ago.
Yeah, same.
Apparently there's a second one. Also, it has 5.8 on IMDb, so maybe it's a goddamn masterpiece,
Oh, I was
Who
gonna say
knows?
that might be the
It also may be an Elseworld tale for Mad Max. What
Oh.
if he was a penguin?
Oh man. Every George Miller movie to me is just a parallel. It's just an
It's just
Elseworld
they're
Mad
all
Max.
Mad Max. You should go onto Wikipedia and just change them all to be like Mad Max 7, Babe, Pig in the City, Mad Max
I
8, Happy Feet.
like this.
So in 2011, he comes out with Happy Feet 2. 2015, 4 years after that, we finally get Mad Max Fury Road. And as we'll talk about, he almost made this movie a couple of times, and a couple of things
Yeah.
prevented that. So joining him along the movie making process are the two new writers and a new editor and new sound as well. So previously we had Brian May working on the first two Mad Max movies, and then we lose him, have a completely different, more Hollywood sound crew come in for Beyond Thunderdome. Here we get Junkie XL. That is who is making the music in this one, and he does a really good job. I will say the music
I don't know.
fantastic.
I don't know who that is.
He is, I believe. So I don't know a whole lot about him. I believe he is like a kind of like a DJ, music producer kind of guy, who does kind of more like techno-ish kind of interesting kind of music like that.
Oh, okay.
But obviously is doing some scoring as well. So kind of creating an atmosphere of sound here. Does a really good job. I like it.
Yeah, I think so. I like the music.
Yeah, the writers joining George Miller, who worked with him at various times throughout the production of this movie. So he at one point had, I think, 350 different stills and scenes like drawn out to storyboard for this movie.
Yeah.
Quite a lot. And the people he had helping him with that were Brendan McCarthy, who is a comic book artist who worked on Judge Dredd, amongst a lot of other things. He also did storyboards for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the first one, Lost in Space, and once again, we return to our recurring reference of he also did storyboards for the first Highlander movie. As well as, I saw on Wikipedia, I don't know if it's confirmed or not. This is Wikipedia, so who knows?
Well, yeah.
Something about he also helped co-write with Lorne Michaels the first Coneheads movie, and also worked on the storyboards for it as well. So yeah, for those listening that aren't familiar with storyboards are basically like so think about it like a comic book. You have like a creation ahead of time before the movie begins production, where you can have an idea in mind of what a shot should look like. So that way, whenever everyone gets to set, the cast, the crew, the the cinematographer, everyone, they have a series of stills, pictures, comic books, almost, if you will, drawings of what the shots should, in essence, kind of be set up to look like. Obviously, there's changes and things you change and things like that when you get on there. But that's kind of the idea, is it's kind of like an outline, a visual outline of what the movie should look like as you're creating it. Oftentimes, directors do them themselves. Kurosawa did them himself. Kind of very famous for doing that himself.
Didn't he do like paintings?
Yeah, he would do like full on like paintings of what he kind of wanted his scenes to look like. Yeah, very much so. Miller kind of outsourced it here, kind of directing what he wanted and having people who could actually draw kind of do that for him, which is cool.
Not a bad call.
I also, as a person who can't draw very well, can understand that. I would definitely outsource it. Probably just ask you, because you can draw pretty well. And I would just be like, hey, this is what I want. Now do it.
I just need to actually do it. That's my downfall.
But beyond being an artist, he also was a writer. So he co-wrote this along with the other big credit he has is he wrote 3 episodes of the TV show Reboot back in the day. Remember that one?
Oh, that way back?
Yeah,
the
Reboot,
one that does not hold up to a rewatch.
I was going to say, it is not. It's a wonderful show. I loved it growing up. I tried to rewatch it on Netflix. Whenever it was on Netflix, I don't even know if it's on there anymore. Years ago, it popped up on Netflix, and now, I remember I think I was living with you at the time, and we tried to rewatch it, and man, it did not hold up very well. It was cringy. No. It was real cringy. It was hard to watch. I was just like, wow, this is not holding up.
And I remember as a kid thinking like, oh, this is cutting edge technology. This is the best anything's ever looked, will ever look. I mean,
this is it. Turns out, no, wasn't it?
It was what's below first gen, because my goodness, it was an alpha stage basically. It was poor quality, but it's great in my memory. I remember it awesome, but yeah. Well, cool. That's so he did part of that.
Yep. So joining him and George Miller in the writing booth is an actor, writer, and director by the name of Nick Latharis, I believe is his name. Forgive my mispronunciation. He was actually an actor in the first Mad Max. He played Grease Rat, who was a little character that shows up for just a second. in the first Mad Max movie. So showing up here as one of the writers, which is kind of fun. And
That's pretty awesome.
this time, Miller had nothing to do with the editing of the movie. He
Right.
did film almost 450 hours of footage, though.
Oh, my Lord.
That's how many hours of footage that his wife, Margaret Sickle, once again, forgive mispronunciations. Yeah, she had to edit over 470 hours of film, which took
Oh,
months to do. And yeah, the main reason he wanted her to do this was, as a famous story now as it's become, he told her that, you know, if he had a guy do it, they would edit it like any other guy would, and he wanted her
mm-hmm.
to edit it from a female perspective. And the movie is definitely heavy in its feminist themes and tropes and
Yes.
whatnot, and we'll talk about those as we talk about the movie. And yeah, I think she did a fantastic job, and so
Oh,
did everyone else
amazing.
because she won an Oscar for it.
Oh, yeah. Well
So
deserved.
did something well, right? According to her constituents, my
Oh, yeah.
constituency. Is you ain't my constituency. So this movie is almost 90% real, no CGI. Only 10% of the movie is CGI, and it was mostly digitizing out certain like, you know, lines and strings that they had,
Oh,
and
yeah.
harnesses for the stunt guys, and then doubling characters during the scenes, like in the big civil and at the Citadel, to make it seem
Oh,
like there were
yeah.
a lot more people, or the cars, like digitizing extra cars, and to make it
Mm-hmm.
seem like there were a lot more people coming after them during the chase scene. So yeah, kind of fun there.
Yeah.
But 90% of it is real. And as I was talking to my wife last night while we were watching it again, because I watched this movie a couple of times.
Yeah.
I was telling her, I was like, this movie just is like one of those movies that it reminds you of how just fucking beautiful the world is. Because
Oh,
like
yeah.
as you're seeing this, it's not like a computer that's doing this. This is real. Like this is what parts of South Africa and Australia look like. It looks like that. Like it looks like a different fucking planet almost.
Yeah.
It's just crazy, you know. And yeah, it's a beautiful
Oh, no,
movie. It is a
it really
fucking
is.
beautiful movie. Absolutely beautiful movie. Deviating from the Beyond Thunderdome Max, where he talked a lot more. This Max has 52 lines, so
Oh, okay.
a bit more than in Road
Yeah.
Warrior, where I thought we got that
Yeah.
kind of perfect number around 16. But you know,
I think that's
52,
a, yeah.
52, 52. Maybe
That's
still a
not
little too
bad.
many.
I mean, Tom Hardy is still an actor. He still has
Yeah,
lines,
let's go ahead and let's go. I was going to talk about him in just a minute, but let's go ahead and get into Tom Hardy. Let's talk about the
Oh, yeah.
cast, and then we'll get into that, because a lot of the cast and a lot of the background is going to involve two characters in this movie, because they did not get along. So
Oh,
Max is changing. Obviously, Mel Gibson had gotten quite a bit older.
yep.
The movie almost got made in 1998, and Mel Gibson was going to be on board. It almost got made in 2003, and that is around the time when Mel Gibson was gearing up to do Passion of the Christ. So he wanted to do
Uh,
that over Mad Max, and so he left to go do that. And at the same time, George Miller was getting ready to do an animated movie that he had agreed to do. Turned out to be Happy Feet. When
oh,
they
yeah.
both got done with both of those projects, Mel had all of his falling out, and so in
Where he
media with
became
his
almost a real life Mad Max.
yeah, when he got pulled over and was being extremely anti-Semitic, and then doubled
Yeah.
down on that, and then
Yeah.
continued to make kind of an ass of himself over the next 2 decades over
Yeah.
his life. Recently in the news as
Yeah.
Blaster or Master, depending on what day of the week it is, has
Yeah, really.
hired him to do something with like ensuring Hollywood is great or something. Yeah, it's like,
I
yeah.
it's
Mel Gibson hasn't been in a decent movie in quite a long time.
hasn't been
Um,
a decent person for a long time either.
True. So Tom Hardy takes on the role of Max, which is interesting because even though Mad Max is an Australian by nature, the
Hmm.
character of Max has at this point to four yet to be actually played by an Australian. Tom Hardy, not Australian. Mel
Yep.
Gibson lived in Australia, but was actually born in America.
Now that I did not know.
Yeah, so his family moved to Australia. So he is not an Australian by birth, and yeah, and then didn't actually end up
Huh.
living there after becoming a successful actor. Kind of moved away from the outback, as they say. I don't know. Is that a
Yeah.
derogatory term? Australians, let me know. Do y'all like when people call you? The Outback? Is that good? Is that not
Yeah,
good? I
really.
don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That'd be a cool name, man. That'd be a cool name. We just call ourselves a shithole. Anyway,
Yeah, right.
so Tom Hardy has had a much longer career than most people could imagine. Do you know, like, one of Tom Hardy's first movies
What was it? That
was
Star Trek movie?
Star Trek Nemesis? Yeah, I was gonna say
That's
fucking
right. Yeah.
Star Trek Nemesis, which is bizarre. Of all the
Right.
movies to show up in, fucking Star Trek Nemesis. That is another movie that I used to watch a lot on HBO. Not
I've
not the
never
best
seen it
Star
all the way
Trek
through.
movie by a long shot, but it's not the
Yeah.
worst Star Trek movie. It doesn't have the fucking Beastie Boys playing in it. I don't like that Star Trek
Ooh,
reboot
which one are we
series.
talking about?
The most recent one, Star Trek, I think it's Discovery.
Oh, you're talking about that one. Oh, I thought you
Yeah.
meant like the Beastie Boys as actors for a second. I was
No,
like,
no, 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 no,
no,
no.
that's right.
Thankfully, no.
No.
Thankfully not. So yeah, that movie, Star Trek Discovery, I did not like that movie. I did not
Yeah.
really like the Star Trek reboot, period. There maybe hasn't been
Fair.
there hasn't been a good Star Trek movie in quite a while, in my opinion. But that's
Yeah.
just me. Tom Hardy did show up in Star Trek Nemesis, though, which is bizarre. He has
Yep.
also appeared in a lot of other movies: Inception, Legend,
Mm.
The Revenant, Dark Knight Rises, Bronson, Rock and Rolla.
Yes.
Basically, if you meet a guy on Tinder and you're like, "Is this guy a dick?" and he lists one of those movies as the movies he loves, more than likely there's your answer.
Yeah, there you
I'm
go.
not saying Tom Hardy is in dickish movies. I'm just saying a lot of dicks like Tom Hardy movies. The
That's
two things
awesome.
don't have to, correlation, causation, however you want to take that.
Exactly.
He's also in Venom, the Venom movies, if that does
Oh,
anything
that's
for
right.
you. I don't like them.
Yeah.
I thought they were shitty. I don't hate Tom Hardy as an actor. I think, like,
No,
Legend, I thought was a good movie.
I
I
don't
think
think I've actually seen that one.
it's pretty cool. He's like
Yeah.
playing two different characters and they're kind of like mentally unwell,
Oh,
like gangsters. It's interesting. I like that one. I like Inception. I didn't
yeah.
really care for Dark Knight Rises. I didn't really care for Bronson. I think it's overrated.
Yeah.
The Revenant is it's okay. It's not my favorite.
I still
Uh,
haven't seen that one either.
and it's the one where Leonardo DiCaprio fights a bear.
Yeah.
That's how I always describe it. As he just fights a bear. That's
He
not
fights
actually
a
what
bear.
happens. But if you describe it as that, you're like, what? Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, good enough.
Yeah. So yeah, Tom Hardy in this movie when he was in Mad Max, he was apparently during a real dickish stage. So
Ah,
he was a dick to George Miller. Showed up late a lot.
oh,
Didn't really
that's
give a shit about George Miller's vision. Questioned his vision. Was
what?
kind of an asshole to Charlize Theron to the point that she really didn't even want to be around him. And at some point, according to her, her autobiography, she like hired additional security to like kind of help keep him away. And she
Oh,
basically said that like if he was a woman doing the shit he did on set, that he would have been fired right away. But he
uh,
wasn't. He showed up late all the time, held up productions, was just kind of a
mm,
dick, kind of made of an asshole of himself. Signed on to
that
do three
sucks.
Mad Max movies, and this is so far, I think, the only one he's been in, and may
Yeah,
possibly be the only one he ever shows up in. I don't know.
I could believe it.
George has with the oral tradition kind of thing, and the narrators changing this kind of chronology of Mad Max now, firmly established in this one, where we see actual
Yes,
like parts of the background completely changed. Um,
completely.
I don't see any reason why you couldn't recast Max as somebody else.
Absolutely.
So Tom Hardy almost did not get this role though. He had some competition. Do
Oh,
you know any of the actors who they also considered for Max?
not a little.
Okay, let me give you some of the actors that almost played Mad Max. Army Hammer, 100% confirmed, 100% cannibal. Um,
Yeah.
Jeremy Renner, who was in fucking Hawkeye, but also 28
Yeah.
Days Later, which is where we'll see him at.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Fassbender,
Okay.
Heath
Okay.
Ledger, Heath Ledger, another
Oh,
Australian.
yeah.
Eric Bana, another Australian.
That would have been. He would have been good.
And the one that really threw me off that I feel like you're gonna have a take on that I'm interested in hearing was Eminem. Eminem.
uh,
Eminem as
I
Mad
don't.
Max.
I
Thoughts?
mean,
I know you're not a
I
fan of his music, and I like parts of his chronology of music.
liked it when I was that age to like stuff like that, but
Yeah.
I definitely grown out of it, and now I
Yeah.
don't even know anything of his anymore. So,
I just think he likes to talk. He just likes to rhyme fast now. That's kind of his whole gimmick. He just rhymes
yeah,
really, really fast, and it's like, cool. What are you talking
that's
about? I
something.
don't know.
Oh, that part, yeah.
I will say,
Um,
I had some hesitation going into this movie. Like, I can remember where I was in 2015, and I remember having some hesitation about them like doing this and being like,
oh
really?
yeah,
Okay, we're
yeah,
really okay. Shit. Like, hopefully it
yeah,
doesn't suck. Hopefully it doesn't suck because this was also around the time when, and still to this day, this is happening when they kind of reboot a lot of franchises, and that's kind of what
that's
it seemed
right.
like at the time, where it was like, oh, really? They're rebooting Mad Max.
Yeah,
Turned out to be okay because we had the same writer, same director previously, a lot of the same
yes.
vision, so it turned out
I
okay.
think that yeah, that made me
But
feel a lot better
had
about it.
Eminem been cast as Mad Max, I
No.
would have had a real hard time. I would have been like, ooh, shit. Okay.
Yeah,
Now
I
this
don't that
is, I don't know how I feel about that.
I
But
no, I
did not
wouldn't.
happen.
No.
Did not happen
That's
that way.
really good.
Yeah. So
I'm glad I
joining
didn't even hear about it back then.
joining Mad Max in as in this cast is the woman that he did not get along with, Charlize Theron, who was an Oscar winner for the movie Monster,
Yes.
which is a fantastic movie.
Fantastic
And
movie.
yeah, she did not really get along very well with Tom Hardy during the production of
Yeah.
this. Playing Furiosa, she will show up again in the next movie we watch in a little cameo as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so she's also been in a lot of the Fast and Furious movies. Two other
Oh yeah.
movies that we'll talk about at some point on our podcast: Prometheus, which is the Alien prequel that fucking sucks,
I was gonna say I
and
don't remember a single second of that movie. I know I've seen
oh,
it.
dude, I
I just
have
genuinely have no memory of it.
Prometheus is maybe one of my least favorite movies of all time, and I remember seeing it in theaters and being so fucking pissed
Yeah.
that they took of like just being annoyed at Prometheus. It's just such a bad fucking movie. Hate
Yeah.
that movie. Hate it. One day we'll talk about it and you'll get to hear why I hate it. She was also in The Road, which is a pretty good post-apocalyptic movie that we'll talk
That
about as
is.
well. And then she was also in another movie that we will probably never talk about, but depending on who your prerogative, it's either good or bad. She was in Reindeer Games.
Which I've never seen.
Mm, I think you would like Reindeer Games.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
her
mean, Affleck was the bomb in Phantom Show.
he was the fucking bomb in Phantom Show, so he's also pretty good in Reindeer Games. If you have a loose interpretation of good.
I'm you're selling this for me, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry,
Like I'm
I'm
all in.
trying my best. This is what I do. I sell used cars for a living. Uh, Actually, her debut into the film world was Children of the Corn 3, which is
Oh.
always fun to go back and see these movies that like especially going back to like actors that were in things in like the 80s and 90s and seeing
Hmm.
like what shitty horror movie on HBO that they were in order
Yeah.
to get started in the industry. So,
So I don't
uh,
remember in that. I'm gonna have to go watch that.
I have the confession I have is I own I think all the Children of the Corn movies. I have
Yeah.
watched only the first one.
Oh, okay.
I know that they get bad real fast and that there's a lot of them. I think there's like 6 or 7.
Okay, that
But
I didn't know.
oh, there's a lot, I think. There's a lot of Children of the Corn movies. Yeah, there's a lot.
Oh.
Yeah. They just keep going. They just kept on going. Uh
I
Speaking of
remember the
Children of the
first one
Corn.
being really good.
Yeah, the first one's pretty good. The first one's not too bad. Speaking of Children of the Corn, we have Nicholas Holt playing here as
Hanky.
Nux and playing the War Boy. He has been
Yes.
doing movies since he was a little kid. Been
Yeah.
just doing all kinds of movies. Really hitting his prime. I think right now, honestly, he's been in Nosferatu recently. That was really
Yeah.
good. He was in Rhinefeld a couple years ago with
That's right.
Nicolas Cage. That's also really good. He's in the TV show The Great,
Oh,
which is
that's right.
about the Russian kingdom. That's a funny as hell show as long as you don't really care about your history being changed.
Oh yeah.
Um,
No, that's
he was in the X-Men revamp that honestly
oh
was
yeah.
not very good, but played Hank
Yeah.
McCoy. I
I
think
liked
he
him in it.
might get carried over into the Marvel. Maybe Marvel will take him as Hank. I don't know. Maybe they'll keep somebody else. My first introduction to him was the show Skins from the
Oh, that's a hell of an intro.
that show
That
when
show.
it first came out. It was a good show. Oh,
Yeah.
what was that?
Um I think a little bit of a cut there. But yeah, the
Oh,
yeah, yeah, the my intro to him, I definitely watched Skins, and I think I watched it
yeah,
after you told me about it.
yeah. It's a great show.
And yeah, because I missed it the first go around, but or
Oh,
you know,
the first two seasons are really good.
yeah. And I don't know, when did that show come out? I mean, I think maybe I was a little older than
Uh,
what you'd expect
I
to
want to say
watch
like
then.
mid to late. I want to say like mid to late 2000s, like 2004, 2005, 2006, something like that.
Yeah, I might have been a little older for that show
Yeah,
or
yeah,
to
yeah,
catch
yeah,
it. So yeah. And
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
but my intro to Nicholas Holt was actually about a boy with
I was gonna say the one
Hugh
before
Grant.
that. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. When he was a little kid. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When he was a little
He
kid. Yeah, I
wasn't about
remember
a boy.
watching
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It's
And
a good movie.
but I mean
It's
it
not a bad
was,
movie.
you had old oh, what's it, Tony Collette. I mean, it was a good movie.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So
So joining them are some other characters. We got Zoe Kravitz, plays Selena Kyle in the most recent Batman.
that's right.
She was also in the High Fidelity remake on Hulu a couple of years ago. That was fair to Midland. You know, it was okay.
Is it?
It was a fine. It was fine. You know, I didn't really need to see more of High Fidelity, but you know, if you're gonna give it to me, you gender swap the character. Okay, that's
Yeah,
cool. Because I
that's
mean, the
cool.
problem with High Fidelity is like if you go back and rewatch it, he's a deplorable human being. If you focus
Oh
on
yeah.
what he talks about at the beginning, when he basically confesses that he like coerced his girlfriend into getting an abortion, like the rest of it
Yeah.
after that is kind of like hard to like take up with like he wants you to get her back. Maybe she has every right not to go back with you. You kind
Yeah,
of
really.
coerced her into aborting her baby. Like Jesus, man, like the movie. You don't notice
Yeah.
that at first because he mentions it just so like matter of factly, and you're like, yeah,
Hmm.
well, yeah, that's a thing you do. And then when you think about it for a minute, you're like, wait a minute now, like, does that mean? And then process it a little bit, but she's also in Dope, which is a really good movie if you've never seen that.
I
Uh,
don't
w-
think I have.
it was on Netflix back in the day. I'm not sure if it still is or
Hmm.
not. It used to be pretty good. It's about some kids in like South Central LA. It's a good movie. It's a good movie.
Huh.
And she was also in a movie that we will probably have to watch at some point, After Earth,
Oh.
the Will Smith and his son Vanity Project set in the post-apocalypse. Yeah. Oh
Oh,
yeah.
that is
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
post-apocalyptic. Oh
It is.
no.
It is. You will have to watch After
Oh no.
Earth at some point.
Oh, of all the movies I wish I could forget. No, too much of
Joining
that is just stuck.
joining Zoe Kravitz. Or we'll talk about some of the wives here. We got Rosie Huntington Whiteley. I'm not sure how to say her full name.
Mhm.
She's a model. She's mostly known for this, and then she kind of took over the Megan Fox role from Transformers: Dark of the Moon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think I
yeah.
know. Yeah.
She was in the third Transformers movie of the like five of them that they did.
Be, to be honest, the only one I've actually seen all the way through was the first one with Mark Wahlberg.
That's the only one I
That's
own, is the one
yeah.
with Mark Wahlberg. Yeah, I don't mind
And
that one. The ones with Shia are god awful. And then
yeah.
for some reason, like Michael Bay was like, when they got to the third one, was like, all right, I know what people hate. They hate Megan Fox. Well, get rid of her. Keep Shia. It's like I find Shia extremely unlikable in those movies. I want the Transformers to
Shocker.
transform with him in the car.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Excuse me. Yeah. Also, one of the wives is Riley Keogh. I'm not sure how to say anyone's name tonight. My mind is like blanking
oh
on
no.
things.
I saw this one written out. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, she's actually the eldest grandchild of Elvis. So there's a Memphis connection for
Okay,
me.
so that did not know that.
Yeah, she's the redhead of the wives.
Huh.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's Elvis's grandkid.
As Elvis's oldest grandkid. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Far out.
And she is also in some really really good TV shows. A lot. She's been in some movies. House that Jack Built is a really good horror movie she's in.
Hmm.
But she, amongst her many TV shows, she's recently was in a little mini series called Daisy Jones. I don't know if you ever saw that one. It's on Hulu. It's
Nope, never
basically
heard of that
like
one.
So it's basically the story of Fleetwood Mac, but they just changed the names because they couldn't get the rights. But imagine
Oh,
like Fleetwood Mac, so Lindsey Buckingham and
yeah.
Stevie Nicks, their whole like love story.
Oh
She
Lord.
basically plays Stevie Nicks in that
Oh,
movie,
okay.
in that TV show.
Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to check that one out.
Yeah, it's not bad. I did not finish it. I watched a couple episodes with my wife. It
Yeah.
was okay. It was one of those ones where I was like, yeah, if you know the background of like, oh, you know the story of Fleetwood Mac and you like
Yeah.
Fleetwood Mac, I would recommend it. If you don't really give a shit about Fleetwood Mac, probably don't need to watch it.
Get right.
Joining them as their villain in this movie is, Hugh Keys Byrne, who we had actually seen before.
Yes.
He was in Mad Max 1 as Toe Cutter.
Mm-hmm.
He was also in Blood of Heroes, which we reviewed, which is one of our most listened to episodes because apparently people fucking love Australian post-apocalyptic movies that became irreverent sports.
Yeah. Hey, I mean,
He's in
we just need to get into that sport apparently. And
apparently, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Just start calling it, doing like commentary over it, like
I would I would
what a maneuver.
oh, he got all of that one.
You got all of that one. Let's go to the highlight reel
Oh, boom goes dynamite. Literally this time.
from
It's post-apocalypse.
downtown. Um, He was also in Farscape, which is a TV show you've mentioned several times now.
Yes.
So
Well,
he
by
was
the
in a
way,
couple
I've
episodes
actually
of that.
started rewatching it.
I started watching it for the first time in a very, very long time, just because you talked about it, and I was like,
Yep.
I'll give it another shot. More entertaining than I remember. I will say that. I will say
Oh
that.
yeah.
Haven't got far enough in it to really give an opinion, but Farscape on second watch through as an adult, liking it more than I did as a child.
Yeah. Oh, I mean that Australia, New Zealand like
Hmm.
produced
Hmm.
shows, I like
Yeah,
those.
yeah. He was also in a movie that I've mentioned a couple times, which we may talk about at one point, just as like a random bonus one. He was in Mad Dog Morgan, which is like a early Australian Ozploitation movie starring
Oh,
Dennis
that's right.
Hopper. It's one of those movies that not enough people talk about how good Mad Dog Morgan is, but that movie, very, very good movie.
I need
So
to check it out.
Hughes Keyburn. This is to be his last movie. He's playing our villain, Emoton Joe, and
Yeah.
yeah, this would be his last movie. So this is a role to go out on. So needless to say, you will never forget him ever again after
Oh,
you see him. He is a
yeah, no.
striking figure to say the least, and you know, uh, an impossible movie to make without him. Honestly, I don't know how you could make it. In
Oh
fact,
yeah, no
one
way.
of the girls mentioned that like I forget which one, I have it written down, but like one of the girls mentioned that like she just looked over at him at one point and it immediately sent her into a panic attack because of how
Oh my
intense his
gosh.
face was. Because you just looked at her and it just like immediately was like, oh my God. Like, she got the fear immediately and it was like, okay, this is getting too real. So yeah. So there's our cast. And mostly, like I said, everyone got along. Everyone had a good time during their 7 months. Fucking Nicholas Holt apparently learned how to knit. He was there for so long.
Far
Just
out.
one of the production assistants or someone there taught him how to like knit. They were like, "I'll teach you." So he learned, which is very funny. But Tom Hardy, Charlize Theron did not get along, and George Miller
Yeah.
and Tom Hardy did not get along. So for those 7 months, it was not a very fun time. Not a very fun
No,
time.
I couldn't imagine a situation like that for that long out in the desert like that.
Yeah, yeah, it would be awful. It'd be absolutely miserable. Yeah.
Oh,
In
it would be
fact, I
miserable.
mean, there were a lot of injuries that happened during the course of the movie, little knickknacks
Hmm.
and things. I'm surprised more people didn't get hurt. In
Yeah,
fact, that's
really.
when he screened this movie to several different like directors, Steven Soderbergh, Robert Rodriguez, things like that. Steven Soderbergh's comments were like, I would kill myself trying to make something like that. How did you do it? And like, how did everyone not die? Like, this is insane. Like, just that he just couldn't wrap his
Yeah.
head around it. Same thing with Robert Rodriguez. Upon seeing it, he was just like, how the fuck did you do that? Like. So these are like like famous directors who have made amazing, like, nominated movies being just profoundly confused as to like how he pulled this off because
Yeah.
it's quite the undertaking. And it
Oh,
took him
oh yeah.
a long, long time. So yeah, quite the adventure. And so originally, as we get into the background of it, we've already talked a little bit about it, so we'll kind of get into the details here. Originally, he wanted the entire movie to be in black and white, which he did get his way with the Chrome edition that came out on DVD.
Oh.
But have you watched that one?
No, I hadn't
So
seen
it
that one.
basically turns the entire movie black and white, and the only colors that
Huh.
you see are like the specific ones that he intended for you to kind of be emphasized. So it kind
Huh.
of takes a different approach to the whole kind of wasteland. I
Yeah.
really like it, but I like both versions honestly. They both have a
Well,
lot
yeah.
to
Well,
be kind of
because
liked here.
the color palette on the, if you're watching it in color,
Oh
I
yeah.
haven't seen the one in black and white, but I feel like, I don't know, there's something like really just beautiful about it. So
Hmm. Yeah, but he wanted
that
it
would
as
be tough.
colorful as possible. Like he wanted his post-apocalypse vision to be distinctly different than all the other ones that had come out and kind of copied his previous vision. He wanted
Hmm.
it to be as colorful as possible because in his mind, people in this wasteland would like they would cherish things of color and beauty, right? There would be
Oh
things that they
yeah.
like would want to show off. So they wouldn't be things that they would hide. It'd be like let's make it as colorful. Everything else is dregs. So let's have
Yeah.
some colorful things here in this environment to make us happy,
Yeah.
however you can. Yeah. So in spite of Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy not getting along, their stunt doubles actually met and fell in love in this movie.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of funny, right? that
Yeah.
they that they just like the exact opposite.
The
It's very
exact
ironic.
opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Well, I could see them being put together a lot just
mhm.
because the other two was so separate. So it was like, all
Yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah.
well, we're going to be doing a lot more, collaborating.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
hmm.
Speaking of collaborating, he actually brought on the writer of the Vagina monologues to help him when it came to enhancing some of the female characters, which I think is a
Huh.
really good idea. I think that if
Yeah.
if you are a male and you are trying to write a female character, I feel like there's only so far you can go before you really need to probably have a female either give it a second eye and see if it's actually needs some touching up or
Yeah.
just have her maybe take over and write that part of the story in a way. Just be like, there's a lot that I think men cannot appreciate of the female experience because it's just something that
Right.
like we don't it's not something that we have to worry about. And this is something that I only noticed more and more like getting married with my wife and realizing that like things that she worries about were not things that
Hmm.
necessarily I ever even really thought about,
Yep.
like walking and someone walking behind me or someone walking
Yeah.
too close to me or like anything like that. As a man, just
Yeah.
like that's not something I ever really concerned myself with.
Hmm.
And then just seeing the world from her perspective and seeing that like, I was kind of viewing the world as almost like from a predator perspective where it's like other than
Uh,
like anything around me I'm not really worried about because like, I'm on par with most of the things that are around me,
hmm.
when it comes to that. And then seeing it from her perspective and kind of just like, like everything might be out to get me at any point in time. And so
Yeah.
I kind of always have to have my wits about me and just the things that she noticed and versus the things that like men notice about certain like people as they walk by and things like that. Things like that I
Yeah.
think men just don't notice, that I think if you're trying to make it an authentic feminist story like this seems to
Hmm.
be, in which I think he wanted it to be, he lays it
Yeah.
on fairly thick. When we get to the plot, we'll talk about it. I think that bringing on a writer like that is definitely a good idea, and I think that
Oh,
she
absolutely.
definitely helps some of the characters out a lot,
Oh,
quite a bit.
absolutely.
Yeah. So he says himself that this is a fairly simple allegory and it's just a Western on wheels, which in a lot of
Yep.
ways, all of the Mad Max movies are fairly simple allegories and Western on wheels. And as we
Yep.
talk about the plot, I will try to just talk about where I'll just say the word allegory, right? Whenever we see one, because there's a lot. There's a lot of allegories. There's quite a lot of allegories. So we talked about where this movie was filmed. 90% of it completely real, not CGI. Filmed mostly in South Africa and in Australia.
Hmm.
Um, so the movie died basically two different times. Like I said, once in 1998, again in 2003. It almost died this in the process of making it, because two reasons. One was the budget, and two was the
Uh,
amount of money it made. So the budget, right? So George Miller ended up going into lawsuit with Warner Brothers because of related to the budget. So his contract stipulated that if he delivered the movie under a certain amount of money, about $150 million or so, then he would be stipulated that he would get a $7 million bonus as a director.
Uh-huh.
Warner Brothers did not want to pay him that because they said that he went well over budget to $180 million. And still to this day, when you look up the budget of this movie, it gives you a range rather than a figure because two different people have two different numbers. They ended up settling out of court for a long time, and that's why Furiosa took almost an additional 10 years to come out, is because they were in legal back and forth for quite a while before they really kind of were able to settle on to who and how much the movie cost. And yeah, even though it cost 150 to 880 million dollars, it made almost double that, almost over 300 million dollars, making it the 21st most profitable movie of the year that it came out in
Hey.
2015. However, when you factor in the amount of money they spent on marketing and everything else that went into the movie, it actually, either depending on who you ask, Miller's camp would say it turned small budget, it turned a small profit of 30-40 million dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Warner Brothers would say that it lost money because
Oh.
it was not able to recoup its expenses, even though it made $300+ million and was the 21st most successful movie of the year. It still, according to Warner Brothers, was a failure, which is kind of
Huh.
crazy to think about.
That is crazy.
That's how much movies are costing now.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, that's just nuts. Absolutely nuts.
It really is.
Absolutely nuts. So because of that, and because of Furiosa also having a similar fate, as we'll talk about next week, the chances of there being another Mad Max movie are not exactly 100% guaranteed. So
Yeah.
when he was making the storyboards and doing all the plotting out for this movie, he realized that he actually had enough content to make 3 movies. So
Oh.
that is one of the reasons he kind of did it Peter Jackson style, where he filmed parts of Furiosa in at the same time he was filming Fury Road. And the idea was that eventually they would also do the Wasteland, the kind of another third one in the trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's ever going to happen. Like I said,
Yeah.
the amount of money that it costs to make these movies now is makes it maybe a little bit more cost prohibitive. I don't know. I would like to see, and this almost happened with this movie, an animated Mad Max. So that
Ooh,
was
yeah.
almost the thing that happened, is they almost turned this into an animated movie, and then it would have voiced Mel Gibson.
Oh, okay.
That did not happen, obviously, but that was a possibility for a little while as well, especially coming off of Happy Feet, Happy Feet 2, Babe, Pig
Mm-hmm.
in the City, seeing the
Oh.
technology you have to be able to, integrate computers and characters and design a whole computer world. You know, that kind of seemed to be where maybe they were heading. But like I said, they ended up not doing that. So it is what it is. Um,
Yeah.
he ended up working again, like he's kind of firmly entrenched with Warner Brothers, which is why it's so interesting that they've had these kind of disputes about money and things like that. The dude almost
Mm-hmm.
directed fucking Justice League before Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder and all of
Oh,
them got on board. His Justice League would have been very different. And
I
in
think
fact,
so.
2 of the characters in this movie were going to be in Justice League. Emote and Joe would have been Martian Manhunter,
Oh,
which I think would have been fucking cool.
yeah.
I think it would have been pretty cool. So when the movie came out, obviously Mel Gibson saw it and he actually really
Mm-hmm.
liked it. He gave Tom Hardy his blessing, was fine with someone else taking on the role, agreed that he was too old to play Mad Max, right? Just too old.
Right.
And so yeah, are you ready to get to when the movie came out and talk about some of the music that was in the charts at
Ooh,
this time before
I'm
we
gonna know
get into the
nothing.
plot of the movie? I have that written down. I literally said, if you get any of these, I will be over fucking joyed. It's in my
I
notes. Good
I
luck.
don't I don't know. I can't even picture 2015.
It's
Like
10 years ago, dude. 10 years ago. And you would think that like 10 years ago, any of these people would have some staying power. And man, I think one of them has still remained relevant 10 years later. And the rest of these four, whew, I
yeah.
just gone. Gone. I don't, maybe in certain communities they're still relevant. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
so good luck. I actually was gonna look up like what was on maybe like the Heat Seekers chart or like the indie charts, things like that. College
Yeah.
rock radio. They don't keep as well detailed notes from 10 years ago, apparently. So
Oh, well.
Billboard it is. Any
I
guesses? Any
I'm gonna
guesses at all?
say
10 years ago.
maybe maybe Miley Cyrus.
No.
No, okay.
Taylor Swift
What
is
about
in the top 10, but she was not in the
yeah,
top 5 at this time. Her dominance had
mm,
not become firmly
yeah,
established.
not quite there yet. I don't know. Was
Not there
that what
yet.
about that one song? Oh man, I don't think this was five
You're off
years ago.
to
I
a
think
good
this was
start. You're off to a good start.
yeah,
10 years
right.
ago. 10 years ago now.
10. I think it might not have been that Gautier song. That wasn't 10 years ago, was it?
I have absolutely no idea. It's not on here though.
Okay. I don't think that was that far back.
I'll
I don't
give you
know.
a
It
hint.
was
Do you want me to give you a hint for number one at
I'm
least?
gonna
Number one's
I'm
like
gonna
the only one I can give you a hint on.
oh yeah.
It was in a Paul Walker tribute thing.
Oh, was that what is his name? Sam Smith? No?
I have no idea if he's part of it, but Wiz Khalifa is the main
Wiz
artist.
Khalifa, that's right.
Yeah. The good old Wiz Khalifa. I have no idea if he's still doing music. I have no idea what
I
happened to Mr. Wiz.
nope.
Does he go by Khalifa or does he go by Wiz? I don't know. I know he used to hang out with Snoop Dogg a lot, who has been
Yeah.
destroying some relationships recently.
Yep.
Any idea on number two? Number two is a
I'm
song that the only hint I could give you would be completely irrelevant to you because it involves a person you've never met. So I don't know. She really enjoyed this song. That's all I can say. I don't know anything else about it other than that. I had a friend who
uh
used to really like this song.
oh God. I'm trying I don't know what was around 10 years ago.
Yeah, dude, it's hard. This might be
Yeah,
the
see,
hardest one ever.
I was gonna
This
say at
might be the
least new
hardest one.
ones I might
If
know,
we went
but
back and did this with the Deluge episode from the 30s, I think you might have a better chance with that than with this. This is a
I
better.
believe it.
So number
Yeah, this
two is Trap Queen by Fetty Wap,
yep.
who also I believe is like a one-hit wonder. I don't think he's ever did anything else. Oh Lord. Number three is not a one-hit wonder. He's kind of like a Prince ripoff wannabe thing. He
Oh,
kind of like he's a popular musician. He's done a lot of famous songs. He played the Super Bowl. He's done all that kind of shit. But I'm not
the
a big fan
weekend?
of his. He's number four actually. Good job. You got one of them.
Oh, that
But
wasn't even the one. I
yeah,
only remember he was in a Super Bowl thing.
was he? I didn't know he was in the Super Bowl thing. Oh, there you
Yeah,
go. I didn't even
the
know
only
that.
reason I remember that is because of the mirrors thing. That's genuinely all I remember. Couldn't tell you a single song.
You
So
mentioning mirrors is like, you're like, I'm like, what is this a David Lynch movie? I don't know anything about what
ooh,
you're talking about, but
maybe that's why I
yeah.
liked it.
So the weekend is at number four, and he's the only one who I
Okay.
said that maybe still has any relevance. Number three was Bruno Mars. Is he still doing things?
Oh, I think
This is
maybe.
this was during the Uptown Funk era. Remember that whole thing?
Was that 10 years ago?
That was 10 years ago, dude.
Fuck.
10 years ago. 10 years ago, we all got down with the Uptown Funk. Every high school in the fucking world made their kids dance to that shit. Um, Number five is a song I've never heard of by a group I've never heard of, and I have no interest in listening to it. It's "Shut
Hmm.
Up and Dance" by Walk the Moon.
I actually, I'm not gonna lie to you, don't hate that song.
I would not be able to pull that song out of a lineup off the top of my head. Could not tell you
I
anything
think
about it.
the thing that drew me to that song was that it's, or at least the, because this is back, I guess, when I would catch a music video,
Hmm.
and it was seemed very 80s to me,
Yeah, yeah,
so I liked that.
that makes sense.
Yeah, I
Makes
don't
sense.
think I've listened to that song in maybe 7 years, but
Yeah. Well, there's
like
our
it hung around for a little bit for me, but no.
yeah, well, unfortunately, the music didn't stick around too much, but this movie has. It has become a
Hey,
classic amongst the action genre, maybe one of the best
yes,
action movies of all time. So we're going to
I
take a
think so.
brief pause, and we're going to board the big rig, and we're going to start
Hmm.
heading down Fury Road ourselves as we talk about the plot, some more little background tidbits about this movie, and as well get into the video game that this movie also had come out
Oh
around the
yeah.
same time. So that's a whole fun little tie-in. So we're going to be
Hmm.
back in just a moment. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for listening for our month of madness as we look at every Mad Max movie in the month of January to start the year with. No better way, right? It's been a crazy year already.
Might as well look at a crazy set of movies. For February, we are going to continue spinning the wheel and making the deal as we take random chances to see what awful movies we are going to watch from the dregs of the post-apocalyptic world. So thank y'all for coming along, and hopefully you stick around for February as we start getting into some questionable choices. Questionable. Thanks. Bye.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Let's get into the plot of Fury Road. And this is gonna be a fun one, I feel like. So
I think so.
immediately the movie starts and we see what we think is gonna be our hero, Mr.
Yeah.
Max. And juxtaposed to Max is this two-headed lizard, and immediately I'm just gonna flash up the word allegory. It's going to happen a lot here, right? Max, like the two-headed, is very similar to a two-headed lizard in this movie, in that he's kind of a man of two halves, and we see that kind of rectified as the movie progresses along. So, after a little bit of narration, Max is off, right, and he doesn't last
Yes.
long because he immediately, pretty much shortly, is taken over. But we do see that he's still got the long hair, so that has come back from Thunderdome, which this movie is supposed to take place after Thunderdome, which kind of immediately gets into the problem with the Mad Max timeline, which is like, what order do these movies go in?
Yeah.
It's a little hard. It's so because of his love of the kind of campfire storytelling method, the timelines are a little wishy-washy.
Yes.
Originally, I remember when this movie came out in 2015, it was kind of high advertised as almost like a remake.
Right.
It's not a remake.
No.
It's not a sequel. It is kind of a sequel in a way.
Kind of.
It continues the story, but it changes some parts of the story.
Yeah.
So some changes from the original is Max's family was driven down by Toe Cutter's gang. In this version, Max loses them in the nuclear war.
Right.
So things change a little bit there. He still has the limp from his injury. He still has the loss of a character that is revisiting him again and again and again, especially in the beginning of the movie. He keeps having these hallucinations, which are really, really wonderfully filmed. And and so he still is kind of the same character, and he is the same character. That is established in the comic book, which kind of served as a prequel to this movie. So there was Vertigo and him, DC, who owns Vertigo. They partnered together and released a series of comic books that kind of functioned as prequels, filling in the backstories of Max, Furiosa, and Joe, telling you what happens to them each, which kind of serves as both an answer to a lot of questions fans had. A lot of people like to speculate that this Max is not actually Max, that he's the feral kid grown up.
Oh.
And they have some answers to say, there's some things that kind of point to that. He doesn't really speak a whole lot, but neither does Max. But then that doesn't really kind of work with Road Warrior because he was telling a story in there. And so that kind of seems like he'd be a little bit more like able to speak.
And he also was kind of I think he was a leader in that story.
Yeah, he's kind of the leader of the village. He takes over after the gyro captain. So but that's not the case at all. This Max is the same Max as Mel Gibson Max, just with a different actor taking over. Same character. Same character. So that is firmly established in the comic book. The comic book also establishes where he gets his new V8 from that he's driving around in the beginning of this movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he gets overtaken by the war boys who basically beat the shit out of him, cut his hair, and began to torture him against his will, which is just a wonderful, wonderful way to start the movie.
Yeah, right.
He's also branded. He's given a tattoo that talks about all of his things. Did you notice anything on the tattoo on his back at all?
I didn't. I thought about pausing it to read it out, but I didn't.
So I didn't pause it to read everything, but one of the things that they mention is that his genitals are still intact, and that his blood type, which is relevant. He's a universal donor, so me and Max have that in common. So yeah, they're tattooing him. They're trying to brand him, and that's when he's able to negotiate his escape, and he starts running down as fast as he can. He's got this like a lockjaw thing on, so he can barely talk, which kind of not gonna talk anyway, whole lot at least. Although when we last saw him in Thunderdome, he had a lot to fucking say during that one.
Yeah.
So he starts to run and he starts to have these hallucinations which kind of interfere with his ability to get out. Also, he's
Mm-hmm.
on the top of like a fucking cliff. So
Yeah.
whenever he finally does find the edge of it, he has forced himself to jump and then is drugged back in by the war boys who
Yes.
then we get the intro to the movie. So all of that is just to start the movie, which is
It's
a
a cold open.
memorable intro to say the least.
Oh
Like
yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
it's a fun little intro. Yeah. So after the intro, we meet the war boys and we meet their leader, and we see the state of him, covered
Yeah.
in tumors, cancer galore.
Yeah.
Uh, he's got like a bulletproof plastic type armor on that makes him
Yeah.
look more fit than he is. Um,
Yeah.
looks like something out of fucking Dune. Looks like something out of David Lynch's Dune. Really, like
Oh
there's
yeah.
a
I
reference to last week.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. So Joe's backstory is a lot of people also speculated that because he's the same actor as Toe Cutter, that
Uh-huh.
this was Toe Cutter, years later.
Oh.
That's also firmly established in the comic books. That is not the case.
I was
Um,
gonna say, yeah.
Also, if you watch Mad Max, Toe Cutter very clearly dies. He is dead.
Yes. Yeah.
However, a lot of what we see with Toe Cutter kind of carries over to this character, the hissing, the
Oh yeah.
witness me, um, the kind of almost like cult like worship that they have for him. So you see a
Yes.
lot of that same kind of things happening here. So you can see why people would have a lot of thoughts about that. But the actual background of him is a little bit more nuanced than that. He was a
Mhm.
decorated war leader of some sort before the
Oh.
war, before the end of the world. Hence, all of like the army medals that he has kind of adorned all over his body armor. Right,
Yeah.
that's kind of supposed to do that. Kind of be a visual reminder of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Interesting thing that Miller did is almost every single character and every single object he had written a backstory for to
Oh.
explain what it was doing before the movie started or
Uh-huh.
why it existed in this universe, including the fire spitting guitar. Like everything in not all of this has been made public, at least I don't think it has, but
Yeah.
everything has a backstory. Everything, which is
Huh.
crazy. Very, very fun. Right. Very, very
Yeah,
fun.
that is.
So, Emoton Joe is the Redeemer, and he decides to unleash the water as he gives a speech to his people, but only so much. He tells them, "Don't become addicted to the water, because you will, you'll be pissed when you don't have it again." Right?
Yeah, right? That's
And
insane.
so we get to see Joe and the kind of leadership that he evokes, which is, um, you know, maybe not supposed to. I'll just go ahead and be allegory, right?
Right.
There's a lot that Joe is standing for and
Mm-hmm.
represents, or you can view Joe as just an action movie as your big bad guy. I
Yep.
love that you can take it from both perspectives. You can dig into the meat and potatoes of it, or you can just take it at face value. Both it works in both ways. It's a fantastic movie in that sense.
Oh yeah.
We also meet Furiosa, who will kind of become our main character in some degree throughout the
Well,
course of
yeah.
the movie. Some people definitely did not like that. There's definitely a culture of dude bros online who were pissed that
Yeah.
Mad Max was not the main character of his own movie, which I
I was
don't think
gonna
they were paying attention to the other Mad Max movies
Yeah,
because he's
right?
not always the main character of those either.
Nope. He's very much a side character in his own stories, for sure.
Which makes sense because they're being told from a different perspective.
That's right.
The feral kid is remembering things from when he was a child, and
Yeah.
in the other one, they're remembering things from when they were children, telling them to other children.
Yep.
This movie is also framed in that same way. We get that at the very end, where we have the first history man is telling us, who's the one who's been telling us the story of Max. So
Yes.
that's kind of cool that they continue that staging of the orator in the kind of oral tradition that the movies kind of have invoked all the way through. It's cool. It's a fun
Which
time.
I really like that as a thing.
Yeah.
Because what else are you going to do in the post-apocalypse? You're going to tell stories.
I mean, you would have to. It's part. I try to tell my students this as just being a weird Englishy person. It's like it's literally part. Like we're hardwired to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we see two things and we immediately make inferences. Like religion is based on this. So is
Yep.
science, right? We try
Yeah.
to explain the world around us. We explain the unexplainable constantly by making sense of the things that we can make sense of, and
Yeah.
calling on our background knowledge to explain new experiences. And I feel like he definitely takes a lot of that and kind of pushes that into this post-apocalyptic movie. And
Yeah.
yeah, I love that he does that. So Joe exits stage left, and well, Max is going to continue getting tortured as he is
Yeah.
now becoming basically a blood bag for
Yeah.
one of the war boys who's going to show up again and again and again as the movie
Mm-hmm.
continues on. Meanwhile, Furiosa is headed towards Gastown, or
Yes.
so you think.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause she has a little change of plans in mind, and they're actually heading east. And well, Joe finds out about this rather quickly as one of his sons, and this is where I said they basically took Master and Blaster and
Yep.
separated them here. So Joe, one of his primary things beyond being a hoarder of water, is he's
Yeah.
also working with these neighboring kind of settlements that if you read the comics, it kind of explains how he kind of helped get established these settlements. So
Oh,
he's
okay.
got the people eaters who kind of control the food and whatnot, and then he's got the people that control the ammunition and the guns and whatnot, and they are what is the bullet farm. And
Mm-hmm.
so he's got these two settlements, and he controls the water. And Joe also has another thing that he's trying to control, which are these ladies. Then he wants himself to have
Yeah.
an heir, and in this way, he's kind of supposed to kind of be evocative of like all the old ancient kings and queens of past,
Yes.
looking for a mighty male heir. And his
Mm-hmm.
two male heirs that we see here right now in this part of the movie, he has a third one that we'll meet later. But the two that
Yes.
we see here, both of them have problems with them, right?
Yeah.
And they're in this way, I think the movie kind of takes a lot of what Beyond Thunderdome had in mind and improves upon it. So, like in Beyond
Yeah.
Thunderdome, the movie really wants us to dislike Tina Turner. Like we talked about that last week, but
Yeah.
we don't spend any time in Bartertown seeing Tina Turner be a tyrant. It's just not something we see. Instead,
Right.
the movie hangs out with Max and these kids, right? In
Yeah.
this movie, we get to see Joe become or is a fucking tyrant. We get to
Yes.
see like the cult of people who worship him and how crazy they are. And we get to
Yeah.
see him preventing people from having water, right? We get to see all that.
Right.
And it gets us to hate him, right? He's a much more effective villain in that way. And not
I
only is he
think so.
hoarding water, he's also hoarding women because he's basically raping and abusing these women that he
He.
claims are his wives, his property,
Uh.
as he calls them. And yeah, that's kind of the whole premise of the movie is because Furiosa is not heading to Gastown. Instead,
Nope.
she is heading east to save these girls that she has smuggled out. And this is kind of the whole setup for the movie
Yeah.
is Joe realizing that his girls have been taken from him and everything that they represent. Once again, allegory.
Yeah.
Because one of the girls is left behind and she tells him what's going on. And you see scribblings all over the wall. If you pause the movie, you can read them all. We are not property, things like that written on
Yeah.
everywhere. This is, the obvious feminist themes of the movie kind of forefront
Yes.
here. Definitely there. Yeah. So, what does Max have to do with this whole story? Well, the blood bag that he has become, he is going to be taken over because Nux, the war boy that he is attached to, he just can't not go into this. He sees everyone getting
Yeah.
ready as Joe gets the whole gang. It's going to be a big, like, we're sending everybody after after Furiosa.
Oh yeah.
Joe wants his ladies back. He's unleashed the hounds of hell. Well, Nux is unfortunately too sick. He needs blood, so he's
Yeah.
not able to go. But he doesn't agree with that. And his solution is let's just strap Max to the front of the fucking car, tied to me to give me blood, and then I'll
Yeah.
drive. And that's
Yeah.
what they do. He's basically a hood ornament. And did you
Yep.
notice what was above Max's head while he was driving? There was another pipe that had a skeleton on top of it, a skull. But did you see
Oh
what
yeah.
the skull was wearing?
Oh, I don't. I don't think I remember.
It was the same hat that the gyro captain wears from the second movie.
Oh.
So yeah, I don't know what we're supposed to infer from that. If that's like, if that's
Yeah.
just a little Easter egg there, or if it's to say like they also killed the gyro captain as well.
God,
And
I
maybe
hope it's
that
just a
whole
callback.
settlement is like because I don't know what that means. In the other movie we
Oh.
learned that the gyro captain was the leader for a while, and then now it's the feral kid. Is this what
Yeah.
happened to him and why the feral kid took over? Who knows?
Oh.
Who knows?
Oh,
So
that'd be a weird. That's an idea that the Pharaoh kid is actually a Morton Joe. Oh God.
that'd be interesting. That could
Yeah.
be you could do a whole bunch of different things here.
I think that
So
that could be something.
so the war boys are off, and so is all of Joe's allies. This basically is where the movie becomes like Miller originally envisioned, a just
Yes.
prolonged car chase scene. Basically, wacky races on acid with extra violence.
Oh
And
yeah.
as a big Wacky Racers fan, I really like it. I really
Yeah.
enjoy it. I'm a big fan of this. I'm a big fan of how this is playing out. Um, where are we in the story? So Furiosa
Yeah.
is heading east, and she's going to get attacked by the buzzards. So for a little while there, she has a gang of buzzards after her, which is another group
Hmm.
within this post-apocalyptic universe. And I love how this movie establishes all these little gangs, like the buzzards, the dirt bike, who I called the BMX bandits later on. Um,
Nice.
just kind of all over the place, little groups of people and what they do, and how you can very, very quickly see like what they are
Oh yeah.
with very limited information. Like these guys, they basically drive like souped up VWs covered in spikes.
Yeah.
And so they are after Furiosa because she's coming through their territory, as
Hmm.
well as all of Joe's guys are after Furiosa because they know that she has stolen Joe's girls, and they're
Yes.
after her. So Max is involved because he is literally strapped to the hood of the car. And
Yep.
this begins
Y-
one of our first of our very long and many car chase scenes that
Yeah.
are beautifully filmed, and you will never forget them once you see them. Some of the most
Oh yeah.
amazing cinematography you'll ever see. This
Absolutely.
is definitely where you can see a lot of the other directors that watch this just being completely like mesmerized as to how you pulled this off. It even made the director of Snowpiercer, who we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Oh, Bong
He
Joon
wa-
Ho.
yeah, he watched this and it made him cry. He was just literally just like this.
Wow.
This is so fucking impressive. How did you do
Yeah.
this? Like
Oh,
literally
that's
insane.
awesome.
Yeah. And so this is as we see the war boys, we also begin to see that they have a battle cry of "Witness me."
Yeah.
This is kind of a callback to the first Mad Max movie with the whole Toe Cutter gang also wanting Toe Cutter to see them, even though he can't see them at all, but just
Yeah.
kind of
Right.
like he's this godlike figure that they can see. And so I think in that way you could kind of tie maybe this like whole worship thing to
Yeah.
to Joe, connect him to Toe Cutter in some way. I'm sure people online have
Yeah.
done it.
Oh, I'm sure.
A job for a different man, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, this first chase scene is intense as hell, and words cannot do it justice. It is a visual feast.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
we see war boys jumping on buzzards, Furiosa shooting the heads off of different things, and just
Yeah.
doing all kinds of little car driving tricks, and just becoming basically like a fucking badass. Just an
Oh hell yeah.
absolute badass. And this whole first scene is capped off by her driving into this oncoming storm, followed by Nux, who has decided that he's going to sacrifice himself, whether or not Max wants him to or not.
Yeah.
He's going to sacrifice himself to stop Furiosa, driving headlong into this cinematographically amazing looking storm. Shit is
Yes.
beautiful.
Oh, it
It's like
is.
a sand hurricane, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, you get explosions in it. It's just absolutely crazy.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. Well, Nux's plan doesn't work because Max doesn't want to die that way. So he stops
Yeah.
Nux from absolutely blowing himself up. Somehow Max survives through this, and the next thing we see is Max awakening from the sand like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Pause
Nice.
for it. Allegory. Um, because in a lot of ways, Max does die. His previous self dies, and
Yeah.
he kind of enters into a new character in a way. And yeah, and so Nux also somehow lives through this. He's kind of
Hmm.
the Wile E. Coyote, the Iron Bar
Yeah.
from this movie.
Nice.
A character that just seemingly never dies, Wes from the second one. Just this
Oh,
never
yep.
ending kind of nemesis that in this movie turns less from a nemesis and more into like kind of a weird little hero in a way. And
Yeah.
he's kind of got his own little character arc. I love that in this movie we have Max's character arc, Furiosa's character arc, Joe's character arc, the entire Citadel's character arc,
Yep.
the girl's character, like all these character
Yeah.
arcs are all crisscrossing, and it's very 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 well
Oh,
done.
it
It's
is a well-woven tapestry.
yeah, it is a good time. So
Oh, yeah.
Max awakens and realizes that he is still stuck to Nux and can't get himself out. Thinks he's dead at this point, and
Yep.
just fucking picks him up and drags him and carries his ass all the way to where he can find Furiosa and the girls who have stopped for a brief respite on this
Yes.
journey. And yeah, this is where we Max interacts with the girls and starts by immediately not making the best first impression. You
No.
know, shooting a gun, trying to shoot a gun at them or pointing a gun at them,
Yeah.
Uh, at this point, so the backstory on the girls is that basically Joe has stolen the most beautiful women from the different villages that he's conquered on his
Mhm.
conquests. He has impregnated one of them at the time that the movie is taking place. And as we find out later, when we see what happens to her, she would have had a perfect baby boy in
Yeah.
every way, as they say. Um, the girls have been basically shielded from a lot of the wasteland at this point.
Yeah.
So inside of the Citadel, he has, according to the comics, he has basically kept them from other men. He has kept them well fed, kept them with the best arts and the best produce and food that
Hmm.
this world can offer them. So he's kind of pampering them in a way, which kind
Yeah.
of leads the whole idea of his kind of allegorical representation and what he stands for as a character in this movie, as
Mhm.
kind of being this demonic figure for these women, while also
Yeah.
representing like a almost protect like. I almost want to say like he's overly protective to them, but doing so in a
Well,
in a almost not
like
almost,
a
but in a
possessive.
yeah, like almost like you would like a child in treating them like they can't see the real reality of the world, because if they
Mhm.
did, they would immediately know he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Turns out they don't need to see the reality of the world to think he's a piece of shit. They think he's a piece of shit in the comics. They think he's a piece of shit before the movie starts. And yeah,
Yeah.
it turns out the girls are right. And but they do have some reservations when it comes to Max. And how
Oh,
could you
yeah.
blame them? How could you not blame them? Right?
I mean, honestly.
Have you seen the guy? Look at him.
I mean, he's got that muzzle over his face and yeah.
But they do begrudgingly offer him some help at gunpoint. They give him some water, and they're
Mhm.
going to help him break free of his chain whenever Furiosa decides that this is the prime moment to get the drop on him.
Yep.
And they have their fight scene, which, if real life is anything to go off of, this was either incredibly awkward for the both of them because they hated each other, or
Yeah.
incredibly therapeutic for the both of them because they hated each other. I
Yeah,
don't know
really.
which, but one of the two is happening here for sure. Right.
Yeah. I hope it was therapeutic, at least especially for her.
Yeah, so eventually Furiosa has a little hidden gun under various parts of her rig.
Yeah.
She finds the gun, she gets it, but Max is able to wrestle it from her and ends up firing it around her body to let her know that, like, I could kill you. I'm choosing not to. I'm going to
That
steal
was
your
pretty cool
car.
shot.
It was pretty cool. It was nice that she does that. At the same time, Nux has woken up and he is also kind of interjects himself into the fight.
Yeah.
And he seems to think that Max is on his side. Max is on
Yeah.
no one's side
Oh,
as
no.
he takes off on the rig on his own. Doesn't get very far as it has a
Yeah.
kill switch. During this part of the movie, I imagine that like if Max had a soundtrack, he would play like Eastbound and Down. You know, he's just gotten out of the situation where he thinks he's gonna die. Now he's stolen this big rig from these ladies and just eastbound and down, rolling up and trucking. So
Nice.
that's not what happens though, because Max doesn't make it very far. Furiosa knows this as she just tells the girls
Mhm.
like, "We're just gonna run," and she knows that he's not going to get very far. She gets there, she explains the situation and what's going to happen and everything, and Max has to begrudgingly let the girls in, and he does, and he.
Yep.
This is where the movie kind of takes off, so to say. Now we have our two main characters together And we know the
Mm-hmm.
plot, right? We have these women who are being victimized by this horrible dictator. He is after
Yes.
them. He's got all of his friends after these girls,
Oh
and
yeah,
just a
like the
whole
Bullet
army.
Town
Bullet
and
Town, Gas Town, everyone's coming for him. Everybody.
yes.
And at the same time, they're just trying to get to where they think is a paradise, right? This is another example of characters in search of a paradise or a home,
Yes.
to so to speak, which is interesting
Hmm.
because the theme of home and the searching of home is also a main theme that in his children's movies as well.
Oh yeah, that is.
Yeah, yeah. So he kind of carries that into Mad Max as well, because in the
Hmm.
first Mad Max, he wants to retire from the police force. He just wants to be at home
Yeah,
happy with his wife and kids. That's taken from him. Road Warrior,
that
they
too.
want to start a new settlement away from Lord Humongous. He helps them there.
Hmm.
The Beyond Thunderdome, the kids want, they have an idea of Tomorrowland being this place that
Yep.
they're looking for. Helps them there. Same thing kind of here, where these girls are after what they call, was it the Green Place?
Yes.
The Green Place, yeah. And so they are after that, and he's going to help them on that journey as well. So kind of another. I love that they just kind of continue that, because in this way, it's less Max as a character and more what Max represents. Because
Right.
he's kind of a I don't want to say he's a MacGuffin, but he's a narrative function in this story.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a Mad Max movie where Max is not necessarily the main character, and I
Hmm.
am fine with that. And
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
if you pay attention to the other ones, he's not maybe the main character of some of those either. So
Yeah,
as we
really.
talked about already.
Yeah, because he's just more of a device there because he's used to drive something or do. Yeah, yeah. This
Yeah.
is not
Yeah.
out of the ordinary for him.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not too long after this that Furiosa and Max are on the road, that they get caught up by the People Eater and the Gas Boys, who are, after them once again. This is going to be a
Hmm.
constant theme that happens in the movie. They get a little bit of a break, they get so far, and then the gang is after them again. And a cool thing
Hmm.
he does is you can hear the guitar and the sound of the cars in the background coming closer and closer and closer in the
Yes.
audio as they're resting or any kind of like moment of peace. You kind of
Hmm.
can progressively hear it closer and closer in the background to kind of let you know like peace is about to be over, because that's
Hmm.
kind of what keeps happening. um as we get to enjoy some of the scenery this movie has to offer, because this movie is, like I said, a beautiful movie to look at. Absolutely
Yes.
beautiful movie to look at.
Like I think it would be miserable out in a desert like that, but they make it look really pretty. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So our next main plot point is Furiosa tells Max that she has safe passage through this little canyon with the BMX
hmm,
bandits. However,
yes.
she also strongly foreshadows that may not be the case. This is
Yeah.
also the first time she asks Max what his name is, and he refuses to tell her. Instead,
Yes.
she's just going to call him the Fool, which is where we get
Yeah.
into a whole another allegory.
Oh, are
You
you
get a
seeing
whole.
allegories in this? Anyway.
Oh yeah, just all over the place, right? So you could take this whole part to be representational of the fool's journey, which is kind of
Hmm.
a parallel to the hero's journey. So we have Furiosa representing the hero and Max representing the fool, and she literally calls him the fool here.
Yep.
It's just very, very subtle, not
Yeah.
subtle at all, but very, very fun. So turns out Furiosa does not have safe passage. Who would have thought, right?
Yeah.
Foreshadowing. Um, because things have changed, right? She said maybe one party would be after her, maybe a couple of cars. Nope, it's three whole war parties. They're all after her. And the BMX bandits, they're none too happy about this. So the deal
Yeah.
was she was going to give them a bunch of oil or gasoline, and they were going to let her cross through their little territory unmolested. That
Right.
does not happen, of course. And
No.
instead, now she's got even more people after her, because now the BMX bandits are also after her. And this
Yeah.
is when they do some like fucking motocross with Molotov
Yes.
cocktails. And it's pretty fucking cool,
It
as
really
she
is.
yells for Max and he takes over the driving, and they're able to get out of there just by the hairs on their chinny chin chin.
Yep.
And this is when Nux meets up with Joe, because Nux has been left behind,
Oh yeah.
and he is able to prove that he's been on, Furiosa's rig, as he has a piece of cloth from one of the ladies. And
Mhm.
this is where Joe spray paints him in the faces and says, like, you're shiny in chrome. And
Yeah.
he wants him to witness him. And so Nux does. And then Joe's response is, do you remember?
Oh God, I can't remember exactly what he said.
Mediocre.
Yeah, what was that?
I guess just
I
openly mocking your sacrifice. Like, not very
I
good.
wonder. I was hoping I didn't, and I thought about putting subtitles on just to see what they were saying because they
Yeah.
chant it later on. I was
Yeah.
like,
They
well,
do.
that must not mean what I think it means.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I
So
heard mediocre. Yeah.
Nux is not going to kill himself. He's not going to sacrifice himself. He's actually going to
No.
instead have a mental breakdown, as we'll find out later. And he's going to
Yeah.
show back up as a changed man. And another thing that Miller does is, as the movie progresses, Nux's white body paint progressively fades and fades and fades as he regains his
Uh,
humanity.
yeah.
There you go. Allegory. So at this point of the movie, you can firmly say that Max and Furiosa are a hell of a combo, and it's kind of a shame that they didn't get along in real life because I feel like we
Yeah,
could
no
have
kidding.
had a lot of really, really good movies between the two of them. Although at the
I
end
think
of it,
so.
you kind of see at the end of it that they're going their separate ways, but you could have always brought them back together.
Yeah.
Max is not one to not see strangers in the wasteland again and again and again.
Yeah, really.
So at this point of the movie, Joe is directly behind them. In fact, oftentimes in front of them at this point, trying to stop them. And this is where he sees one of his wives, and the one who is currently in the middle of having some labor pains.
Yep.
This is also the girl that Max shot at and wounded earlier, and she's now bleeding
Mm,
from her leg. She opens the car door to reveal her child and to prevent Joe from taking them on and killing them. And this,
yes.
unfortunately, leads to her downfall because in doing so,
Yeah.
she then slips out of the car that Max is driving and kind of reenacting a scene from the first movie. She gets run over by Joe as he tries to flip his monster truck to stop from running her down,
Yes.
but is not able to do so. And the girls want to stop and go back. And Max tells Furiosa, I saw her go below the wheels. And she's like, you saw that? And he's like, yeah, yeah. So
Yep.
they decide to continue. Joe is none too pleased about it, and somehow he survives. I guess his monster truck had a roll cage in it, and he was just like able
I
to
guess so.
able to get out of that just fine.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah,
he's
I
fine.
did.
Not a big
I
deal.
didn't look at a lot of trivia, but I did see that car that he was driving was fully functional. That was a real
Yeah.
thing. Like
So
they
like
made it.
almost all of the cars are fully functional in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, like almost all of them worked, and most of them did not make it through the shoot, as most of
Oh,
them
yeah.
absorbed so much sand that it just destroyed them.
Oh, I believe it.
Absolutely destroyed them. Absolutely destroyed them. So we enjoy some amazing scenery as the girls and Max kind of continue driving through the wasteland as Joe is furious and shooting with his son, just blanks and bullets all into the sky as he holds his pregnant dead wife, or no, well, one of his many wives, and
Yeah.
yeah. And meanwhile, Nux is having his mental breakdown on the top of the rig, and this
Hmm.
is where one of the girls, are Rosie, not Rosie, sorry. She is the daughter of Elvis Presley. She finds, not granddaughter of Elvis Presley, excuse me.
Yeah.
That actress here. This is where she comes in and she finds Nux in the back of the rig having a complete mental
Hmm.
breakdown, and
Yeah.
she kind of empathizes with him a little bit and sits down and has a whole conversation with him. And this is where we learn that like he wanted to kill himself, but
Yeah.
he wasn't able to,
Right.
and he feels like a failure, and he feels like he's never going to get to Valhalla. And I love that they take little bits and pieces of like different religions after the end of the
Hmm.
world and push them together to make a new religion. So you get
Yeah.
like Valhalla from like, Norse mythology, and we get V8 from like a basically American pop culture mythology, kind of
Hmm.
taking these ideas and crisscrossing them and making them into a new kind of organized faith in this post-apocalyptic land. It's a fun time. It's a fun time.
It is.
Yeah. So then we get into what has now been called the blue scene, as we get our night scene as Max and the girls are unfortunately facing the predicament that every country boy from West Texas has known.
Huh.
You got stuck in the mud.
Yep.
You got damn stuck in the fucking mud. It happens when you go out mudding, man.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes you get stuck in that mud and you just can't get out. You just can't. So yeah, they're stuck in the mud and they're trying to get out as they know Joe and the gang are coming.
Oh
And
yeah.
this is when we get the absolutely crazy scene involving the the blind bullet daddy, as I want to call him now,
Mm,
as the pistol papa. He decides he knows that his group with an ATV they can go mudding, and they're gonna
yeah.
get to Max and the gang and take him out for Joe, take him out, save the girls, but take out everyone else. That's kind of the
Right.
plan here. All right. And we can just tell you can just go ahead and say like the whole effect that this entire scene takes place on the color blue allegory. There you go. Another one. Another one. The fact that Max sees them coming and tries to shoot them with the gun and is not able to because he is not a very good shot, and he
Yeah.
passes literally passes
Literally.
the torch to Furiosa.
Mm-hmm.
Allegory. Seeing a lot of them here, I think.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, he passes the weapon to her, and she is a wonderful shot, and she pops him, and he's dead. Right? That's it.
Yes.
And the girls and Max and Furiosa are able to survive long enough, but he's not unfortunately dead enough because he's going to come back and just shoot randomly everywhere. And then this Max and Nux and everyone have to run and hide behind trees and
Hmm.
everything they can to just not get shot down by all these guys that are just shooting everywhere, everywhere, everywhere they can. All right. So Max has to go and help cool the engines down. And while Nux is doing that, Max decides to go and help out with a different way. And when he comes back from
Hmm.
helping out, he bathes himself in the mother's milk.
Yeah.
Um,
Which that scene where they're doing the milking,
uh
did they have several I guess several nipples on each of
I
them?
believing
Like
that, yeah, believing all the heavy radiation kind of probably
y-
led to that. But yeah,
yeah.
yeah, the
But
fact
they've
that
got
Max,
dairy,
yeah,
it's like you were saying, they were, using people as commodity,
oh yeah,
and here we
everything in
go.
this movie is about commodification. Like every
We
Max literally is his blood is a commodity, right?
Yes. Oh yeah,
Like
because
he's
they're
physical
tattooing it
person.
on him.
Yeah, yeah, he's
Yeah.
typo negative. He can donate to
Yeah.
anybody, right? So he's literally a commodity. Like people have become a commodity. It's
Yep.
very well done.
And
So not only
and we
is
have
oh, good.
dairy, like dairy women instead of cows. Like
Yes, yes, his dairy ladies. Yes, 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 yes.
yes.
So Max bathing himself in mother's milk.
Yeah.
Allegory. Allegory. There you go. So Max falls asleep after this ordeal, and they get through the blue scene, and we see some majestic imagery, and we also learn a little bit more about Furiosa, the Green Place,
Mm-hmm.
why she's saving these girls, and all that information. And then we finally arrive and we meet her people. And
Yep.
this is the first time in any of the movies where we get kind of any indication as to how long anything has been going on for, because she says it's been over 7,000 days plus the one she can't remember since she was in
Uh,
this little area here.
mm-hmm.
So some people online have actually been able to do the math to figure out like exactly how many years it has been now. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. I'm not going to do all that, but I
Oh
think
no,
that was interesting.
we are not mathers.
No, no, we've more than proven that before, right?
Yeah.
And I love that these ladies immediately do not trust these men at all. Like they see
Right.
Max and Nuck and they're like, who the fuck are these boys? Like, because basically they have built a society that is completely feminine, and
Mm-hmm.
it not only is functional, it is succeeding in different ways and better ways than Joe's is, which is
Yeah.
just based on fear and hate and intimidation and things of the
Yeah.
sort. So, but we do find out that
Very,
the
very
green,
much a male way of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
ruling.
Yeah, Max and Nuck are vouched for by Furiosa. She says like, no, they actually they helped us get here, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, they kind of represent changed men, because of Max physically going through a change with the mother's milk,
Mm-hmm.
Nux literally going through a physical change as well as his white war boy straight paint is kind of beginning to fade away. And we see
Mm-hmm.
more and more of his scars and tumors and the things that have his story, the things that have happened to him as well.
Yeah.
We kind of learn more and more about that. So we find out that the green place is not what it turned out to be, as
Nope.
unfortunately, just like in Beyond Thunderdome, this paradise, this utopia didn't last,
No.
and it fell down. And in a lot of ways, this is kind of another parallel we see with Road Warrior and in Mad Max 1 as well, which kind of takes place before the fall. We get
Yep.
hints of what's about to happen with the society and how everything that was in place that seemed perfect is gonna fall apart. In Max's
Yes.
family as well, like it seems like this perfect thing that he has, and it's doomed to fall apart. So
Yeah.
love how all that's set up. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
perfect, just perfect. Yeah. So Furiosa doesn't take this very well. She has kind of a mental breakdown for a little
Oh
while,
yeah.
and she is planning on. She has a different plan of what she wants to do now that she's here. And Max is respectful of her plan, hears it, but also, decides that he doesn't want to be a part of what they're going to do. But he has a
Yeah.
change of heart, and then this way, I feel like he's also kind of going through and showing that he's become a different person now, because
Right.
he sees. I think he sees a lot of himself in Furiosa, like
Hmm.
what if I didn't give into the madness and I was able to get my wife and kids out, like because so far she's been able to get all the girls, not all of them, but
Oh
she's been
yeah.
able to get most of the girls out, like
Yes.
they're all here other than one, and she's done great. And I think
Yeah.
he sees a lot of herself in that. And he decides to help them by telling them, hey, your plan is a bad one. Instead, what we should do
Yeah.
is turn back around and go straight back to the Citadel and
Yep.
kill Emote Joe and then use the Citadel as your new green place. Like it has everything you'll need. It has food, it
Hmm.
has water, it has everything you need. And this
Yep.
is basically the
And
plan.
it's just like in Thunderdome when he says there is no tomorrow, Tomorrowland. Let's go here.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Oh, well, actually, I guess they did eventually leave that place, but they went back to where he escaped from.
Yeah. 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 Perfect.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
this follows that again.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think it definitely has more purpose, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
so
everything in this movie has more purpose. Like I said, this
oh,
movie is
absolutely.
kind of like a better version of Beyond Thunderdome in a lot of ways.
Oh, absolutely.
And so we get our race back to the Citadel. So this is one of the most intense car chase scenes ever
Oh,
filmed. It is impossible to do it justice with words, just like
oh,
the first
absolutely.
one. It is just absolutely visually stunning. But we see flashbacks, we see midair kidnappings.
Oh, yes.
We see V8 glass blowing, chainsaws,
Yes.
various
Um,
allusions to previous Mad Max movies.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, there's so much going. It's such a dynamic scene, and it's all these like what you expect from other action movies,
Uh-huh.
all while driving at
Yeah.
this incredible pace. At the same time,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's an amazing visual feast.
it
It is
really
truly,
is.
truly amazing. So, Nux is able to save the engines while Max hitches a ride with the good old Pierce Nipple Daddy, who I'm going to call Alex Jones. Um,
Nice.
so Max is able to hitch a ride with him and use him as a personal body shield, which is always, a good time.
Uh, you
But
know,
unfortunately, during the course of the race back home, Furiosa is hurt fairly bad, and
yes,
she's not exactly where she wants to be. But Max is able to explode about half of Joe's gang as we get this
yeah,
crazy, crazy long shot of all the cars blowing up. And yeah, there's where a lot of the cars blew up at.
yeah.
A lot of the functional ones right there just were designed to blow up right there. So they did that really well.
Oh,
So
it was awesome.
Joe cuts off Furiosa as we get another reenactment of I kind of referenced Fast and the Furious here since Charlize
Oh
Theron had
yeah.
been in some of those movies at this point. But she's too hurt to take the wheel, and she's got other agenda in mind. She's going to try to go kill Joe herself. So Nux takes the wheel as Max realizes that he's a music lover and takes out the little
Yeah, oh, yeah.
the little bard, the D&D bard that's been playing music this whole time to
The
inspire Joe.
battle. What do they call them?
Uh, I forget the name of his character now. I forget. They say it again and again and again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, he's doing that kind of thing. But uh, that was a really cool thing because again, more practical effects.
yeah,
That was a real guitar, or I say real guitar, a real thing that like actually
yeah,
shot out
yeah,
flames
yeah,
and
yeah.
all kinds of stuff.
He used the whammy bar to control it. Apparently,
Yeah,
it weighed like over 100 pounds, which is crazy.
yeah, that is crazy.
Must have been a hell of a day to have that
Oh, I
around your
mean,
back all day long.
oh god.
So
I mean,
yeah,
hopefully
Furiosa.
it was suspended enough. Hopefully that didn't,
Yeah, yeah, didn't hurt too bad. Yeah, yeah. Who knows? Furiosa is prepared to die to save these girls, as she is
Yes.
going to give it her all to kill Joe and to end this. So this is where we see some of the elders from her village start to get killed off, which is very
Yes.
sad and kind of
It
also
is.
reminiscent of the Road Warrior, where we lose a lot of those people as well that we've kind of
Ye-
learned to love a little bit. You know, some
Yeah.
of them are pretty funny. We also get dual fights. So Max is squaring off with one of Joe's kids, who's played here by Nathan Jones, who was a pro wrestler for a cup of coffee. And
Oh, there you go.
Furiosa is taking on Joe. Both of the fights
Yes.
end pretty well. Furiosa is actually able to kill Joe.
Yes.
Max is able to get away from Joe's kid, though.
I gotta say, Joe's death gruesome.
Yeah, Joe's death is pretty gruesome. Furiosa basically rips his face off
Yeah.
using a car as his assistance.
Face off.
Face off. Yeah, yeah, right. um, and this is also where we see Nux pay the ultimate sacrifice because he knows that he's not going to be able to get them where they need to go without him dying. And this is where we finally his story comes full circle as
Yes.
we see him kind of be able to finally sacrifice himself for something really worthy of sacrificing himself. And
Yes.
in this way, he's able to provide them safe passage to the Citadel, and they are almost home. Except Furiosa is badly hurt, and this is where
Mm-hmm.
Max does two things. One, he gives her hers blood because he's a type
Yep.
O donor, so he can do that. And two, he finally tells her his name, right? And in
Yes.
this way, it's almost like once again he is like physically passing the torch with his blood
Right.
and giving of his name, which is something
Oh
he hasn't
man.
really said much to anyone else through all of these movies. Really, he very
Yeah.
rarely says his name. He's kind of like a sacred word to him. He doesn't say it a whole lot. So yeah,
Right.
another allegory.
That's a beautiful one though.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, it's a beautiful one. So they're finally home at the Citadel, and they pull in. Excuse me, sorry, losing my voice for a second there. They pull
Okay.
in, and Max is they Joe's remaining child pulls back and sees who it is and sees it's Max, and all the war boys,
Yes.
all the citizens are here to see what's going on. And
I
Max gets out of the
I gotta
car. Go ahead.
say that actor that played his son there, like the emotion in
Yeah,
his face and everything, I was like, oh, I feel that.
yeah, yeah.
That's intense. Because I mean, he's like, oh, that was all the protection I had. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
like this could go very badly for me. And also, these are my family, so
yeah,
that
yeah,
it was all written there. That was awesome. I actually
yeah.
felt that one.
Yeah. So Max reveals the body of Joe, and kicks it off the top of
Hmm.
the car, and the citizens of the Citadel, a la Mussolini, rip it to fucking shreds.
Yes.
Yeah. They were tired of that tyrant. They were happy he was dead,
Oh
which
yeah.
reinforces how the movie wanted us to view him, right? Which is exactly what. So Furiosa and everyone, the girls, everyone in the Citadel wants them to ascend, so they ascend to the top of the mountaintop. And Furiosa is now the leader of the settlement as she unleashes the water for everyone. Good news, everyone. The
Yes.
water is flowing.
Yeah.
And this is where we see the end of the movie as Max kind of disappears into the crowd as the two kind of
Yeah.
maintain eye contact. And there's that acknowledgement of like, this is kind of where I was saying that it seems like Max has literally passed the torch and given,
Yes.
her like, you did it right. Like, she is, I think, like an idealized version of him. Like she is what he could have become if he wasn't
Yes.
able to give into the madness, right? She was able to maintain her humanity throughout all of
Hmm.
this, which is something that
Right.
Max has not been able to do thus far.
No.
And I really loved how the movie ended. So yeah,
Oh yeah.
final thoughts. I'll go ahead and go first.
All right. Well, yeah, I would say this movie is, I think you had said it earlier, one of the best action movies of all time. And I'm 100% with that. This is a great movie. Um, of all of the like nostalgia movies that we've been seeing in the past, 10, 15 years or so, this one by far absolute best. I mean, no nostalgia movie has come close to what
Yeah.
this one did. But what happens, I think what this movie does, it achieves, is it's an evolution of like all three movies. All of the elements of the three other movies are just evolved to a more, you know, just I don't know what the word is, but like it's so more realized. It's more
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the right word, but it's a lot more oh, there is a word and I cannot think of it. But anyway, it's a lot more emphasized, maybe. It's a lot more I don't know, like it understands itself better, that kind
Yeah.
of thing. Like
Yeah.
each of these things that they take from these other movies, like you have some elements uh from like Thunderdome that are handled just so much better here. Like it's like it learned from itself. And it's just so good in that way. And like you were saying, like there's so much meaning
Someone was
in
detected at your
everything.
backyard, Matt and Matilda.
There's my ring alarm telling me someone's in our backyard.
Well,
Go
oh
ahead. Keep
Lord.
going. It's probably
But yeah,
my wife just taking the dog's party.
that's I like your optimism.
Yeah,
So
it's fine. Go ahead.
um yeah, there you go. But anyway, yeah, the I think because there's so much meaning, it's not at all lost for all of the action scenes, all of that, but just put together so perfectly. Couldn't have been a better editor for it. I mean, everything just came together so perfectly. This, um, while it's for me, nostalgia keeps my favorite of the Mad Max movies being Road Warrior.
Mhm.
This one, I mean, it's neck and neck,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
achieves what no other nostalgia movie could, and some kind of no other sequel, or like dipping back into a world. No,
yeah,
nobody does it
yeah.
better.
Yeah, same. When this movie came out in 2015, I initially did not want to see it
Mhm.
because I just wasn't sure what it was going to be like. I was just like, oh God, they don't need to bring Mad Max back. Like, Beyond Thunderdome was bad enough. We don't need another strike at the wheel. This is also coming on the heels of like Lucas going back to Star Wars and fucking it up. And just, a lot of these series kind of coming back and just not being of good quality, like you were saying. Just
Mhm.
kind of nostalgic for the sake of nostalgia. Just like, y'all remember Jumanji? Here's another one. It's like, I don't need that. I want something original. That would be something more preferable. And I like that we don't get just the same Mad Max movies kind of regurgitated. Instead, he takes elements from all three of them, and maybe the word you were looking for is synthesized. Um,
Ooh.
takes things from all three of them and kind of synthesizes them into something completely new that takes elements and borrows from all of them. So if you've been paying attention to the first three movies, you are heavily rewarded for doing so. However,
Mhm.
if you've never seen any of them before and this was your introduction to the series, you would be fine. There's nothing in here that you're like, well, I need to know what happened in Road Warrior to understand this. No, you don't. No, you don't. You're fine. You don't need any of that here. Like he's going to take this whole oral tradition thing and kind of reuse it again in so many fascinating ways. And I think this is not only one of the best action movies of all time, this is one of the best movies of all time.
Mhm.
It's insane that like this is of all the movies in the Mad Max filmography at this point, we got blessed with Road Warrior, which is an amazing movie. We got pretty well spoiled with the first one, which is also a fairly well made movie. Beyond Thunderdome is also pretty good for what it is. It's not the best in context to the other two, but it's fairly decent. And then now we get this one with Mad Max 4, which is just like you said, it's if it's not better than Road Warrior, I don't, it's pretty much almost just as good. It's kind of a
Mhm.
toss up for me. Some days I like Road Warrior more, some days I like Fury Road more. I just after just watching them back to back to back like we have this month, right now I would say Fury Road is probably my favorite of all of them. This movie
Fair.
is impressive in so many ways that I can't even put words to it. It's one of those movies that, as a person who loves movies, you can watch it and literally still be like kind of like a child. Like, now how the fuck did you do that? Like you just literally like looking at it and not being able to see through it and being like, okay, well, yeah, you did this and this and that. Like, no, like you can't. It's hard to do that with this movie where you're just like, how did they do this? You know, I think this is one of those movies with all of the themes, the allegories, as we've said,
Yeah.
um, with the way it was filmed, the production history of it, the start and stops and everything that happened to the way this movie was made. This movie was kind of destined to be talked about forever. And I
Oh
feel
yeah.
like it's going to be one of those ones that, we're 10 years on. I think 20 years from now, people will still talk about Fury Road and continue to do so and continue to do so for years and years and years to come because
Yes.
it is a pretty much a masterpiece. I
I
can't
think
think of
so.
anything I could do to improve it.
Yeah.
Maybe have Max talk a
Um,
little bit less, but
a
otherwise,
little
like
bit less.
I can't think of anything I would do
No, not
differently.
really. I
Really,
did
I can't
remember
think
the
of
word I
anything.
was looking for.
Yeah.
The word I was looking for was distilled.
Oh,
It's
nice.
the distillation of all these ideas from the first three coming
Oh,
in and just making this just pure goodness of a movie. It's just yeah. So like
nice.
this one is it definitely lands. It's so good.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so good.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, distilled is a wonderful word. I don't have a good transition to use with distilled, so I'm gonna say smorgasbord. There's another good word.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been a smorgasbord of an episode. We kind of talked about a little bit of everything, touched
Yeah.
over a lot of Fury Road, hit a lot of the high points, a lot of the low points, and a lot of the in between. Thank you
Mhm.
guys for coming along as we boarded this lovely little journey across Mad
Mhm.
Max. We got one more movie to watch next week, Furiosa at Mad Max Saga. I
Yes.
have not seen this, so I am looking forward to watching it, and I might literally hang up this call with you and go watch it right now because I've been looking forward to it and watching all these Mad Max
Yes.
movies back to back to back to back like this has definitely built up my anticipation to catch Furiosa. So thank you guys for coming along this journey of the wasteland. Give us a like, subscribe, review, all of that stuff, and
Yeah.
we will talk to you guys next week. Thanks. See ya.
Take it easy.